You can't just put the building blocks all down here and be like, okay, we're gonna add another story to the gym. Hey gang, welcome to Goalie Training Pro TV episode 18, and this week's episode is about sport supplements. So, because I know it's confusing, I get confused, and I get at least one email a week from an athlete that I train who's like, hey, what do you think about Super Stacker Ripper XG Gen 2? It's like, I have no idea even what that is. So I want to try and help dispel some of the myths, maybe point you in the right direction, because also some people, sometimes I talk to parents and they're like, oh, and none of that protein shake crap. And it's like, well, it's not all magic juice and it's not all crap. So it has its use and its value. And so let's figure out, hey, when should I be thinking of using this, and what should I look for if I do decide to use this? I will mention it now, and I'll mention it again at the end, and I don't get paid by them or anything like that. But the source that I go to when I have a question about nutrition is precisionnutrition.com. So if you go to precisionnutrition.com, in the top right side, there's a link to free articles. So when you land on the page, because they do a nutrition certification and stuff, and that's what they sell. But in the top right, there's a link to free articles, and you can go in there and you can search almost anything. So, if you hear about intermittent fasting, ooh, I wonder, oh, that's supposed to be really good. Well, go in there and read about intermittent fasting, because John Berardi is sort of the head guy behind it. He was at Western when I worked at the Fowler Kennedy Clinic. So, he's been at it a long time, and he has his PhD in sport nutrition, and he really looks at it from an objective perspective. So he doesn't get, swept up in the hype of it, like, oh yeah, this intermittent fasting and you'll get ripped. He's like, yeah, when you do intermittent fasting, you actually just can't eat as many calories as you normally would over the course of a day. So a lot of people do lose weight, because if you're only eating in a 6-hour window or whatever, you're not going to eat like 3 huge meals in 6 hours. So that's who I go to, and he even has a list of like supplements that he likes and the brand names and everything. So that's the place to go if you want to fill in some more gaps for yourself. But I think the big take-home point is that, and when people approach me because they want me to promote or use their supplements, and I'll say, okay, well, ours is like so pure and it's super, bioavailable, and it's like, okay, but it's not. And sometimes they'll say like, okay, I get it, but it's like, it's not magic. Oh, well, and they take offense, but there is no supplement that is magic. There's no magical pure protein that's purer than just protein that you get from food. So always keep that in mind, that you can't make protein more pure than just protein you would get from ingesting protein from whole foods. It's a convenience. It's like, well, I can't really put steaks in my gym bag, but I can put this in my gym bag. You could put steaks in your gym bag, but but there can be crappy stuff. So, those brands, I think they really pride themselves in not just getting the cheapest whey protein or whatever they can get, but really investing in trying to get some responsibly farmed, proper type of protein sources. It's kind of like chipboard. You can get chipboard, I guess, it's made from just the crappiest kind of wood, and it's not going to be very durable, even though it can kind of half do the job. Or you can get chipboard that's made of, better types of wood that's going to be a little bit stronger. It's still not going to, it's not going to be as pretty and probably not as strong as using good, clean boards, like just eating whole food, but it gets the job done. That's a weird analogy. Okay. So protein, we'll talk a little more about protein. Sometimes it gets a little overemphasized, like people all about, I need protein if I'm going to gain muscle. Well, just eating protein doesn't make your muscles bigger. So you have to be doing the training. And then ingesting protein and carbohydrates and healthy fats. So those are our 3 sort of macronutrients, our fuel sources. Carbohydrates get a bit of a raw deal. And again, it comes from popular media, people who are just sedentary individuals who just don't want to get fat or trying to lose weight, and they talk about restricting their carbohydrates to kind of trick their body into burning fat. This is not a strategy for athletes. And so carbohydrates is our primary source of fuel when we do muscular work. Our muscles can burn fat for fuel, can also burn protein for fuel, but the most efficient one is carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is the only source of energy for our brain. So only carbohydrate can cross our blood-brain barrier. So it's important. So I'm a little dismayed when athletes want to go on a low-carb diet, unless there's some kind of health issue going on, and then I get that. Again, it comes down to good sources and crappy sources. So I remember my dad, we drove to Florida. I think I was maybe 19 the first time our family ever drove to Florida. But we drove to Florida and we stopped at to fill up with gas. And we went into the gas station to pay. And there was a kid in there who was like, hey, mister, do you have any money so I can get something to eat? And my dad wasn't really a give money away kind of guy, but I was really surprised. So he pulled out, I don't know what it was, $2, let's say. And he's like, here you go. And then, we're getting stuff. And then my dad ends up behind line of the kid that he gave the $2 to, and the kid's buying a 2-pack of Twinkies. And that's probably the last time my dad ever gave a kid money for something to eat. He's just like, man, the nutritional value. So Twinkies are a crappy ass option for carbohydrate, but vegetables, fruits, lentils, nuts, sweet potatoes, like those are good sources of carbohydrates. So don't just think carbohydrates is like Wonder Bread or something like that. That's also where we get tons of our fiber. So carbs are good. So if your goal is to gain muscle, you need to be doing the right training and getting sufficient calories. So think of your food, just as building blocks. If we're gonna build a big house, it's like, okay, we're gonna build an addition onto the gym. We're gonna add another story to the gym. We'll use this stuff to do it. It's like, well, that's not number one, it's not enough protein containers. And number two, it's not a good source. So we need to get enough calories, and we need to be getting quality calories if we're gonna build muscle. And then we also need to actually do the work. So we can't just put the building blocks all down here and be like, okay, we're gonna make us add another story to the gym. It will never happen. So, and then the way to know for sure if it's working is to monitor your body composition. So we'll monitor body composition in the gym. If you are adding muscle and adding fat, you're probably eating too much. If you are adding muscle and losing fat, you're probably not getting enough calories. So you probably could be adding even more muscle because you're going into your fat stores to get more energy to do your training. If you are adding muscle and your body fat is staying about the same, and if it's at the level where you want it, then we're pretty good. We're pretty good. If you are, this is the other one. If you are adding fat and not adding muscle, you're either not doing your workouts or you're not, you don't have a good workout program. So, but body composition is a way to monitor that. Probably the simplest way is to do calipers. You can do those ones where you stand on the scale and it checks your water composition. I think they're somewhat reliable if you do it the exact same time of the day, the same hydration status. I think they're somewhat reliable, but because it's based on your hydration status, it sort of can vary if you're dehydrated or whatever. So, and then like if you have access to a bod pod or something like that, I mean, that's the best, but let me check my little notes. Yeah, so then if we look at, so these are some of the ones that we use in the Revolution Gym. We've been using Thorne Research for a while. I really, really like it. I go out of my way to buy NSF Certified for Sport products, so NSF Certified for Sport, because we have some professional Olympic level athletes that train with us, so we don't want them to accidentally get something that they shouldn't get and test positive, and then I will be on the news saying, "Oh, we thought it was safe." The NSF certified for sport means that every batch is tested. So just regular NSF certified means that it's like random tested. It's not the be all and the end all, and I think that companies have to pay quite a bit to get that testing, but it just tells me that this company's invested in making sure that something doesn't end up in there that shouldn't. And then we look at, so this is just a whey protein isolate, and if we look at what's in it, it's 21 grams of protein, and the ingredients are like whey protein, cocoa powder, sunflower lectin, evaporated cane juice sugar, stevia, xanthan gum, I don't know what that's for, carboxymethyl cellulose gum, but that's it. So there's not a bunch of crap in it. If we look at this one, this is superhuman strength. This is their recovery. I'm just trying to find. So 27 grams of protein in this. And then when we look at the other ingredients, where are they found? They're there. Pea starch, natural flavor, citric acid, potassium citrate, sodium chloride, which is salt, beetroot red, calcium lactate, lectin. That's the whole ingredient list. So, and they have, both of these, they have like vegan versions as well. Superhuman, their protein, you can get a grass-fed whey protein. So they have some nice variety there. Just read the label and it should be pretty simple. There shouldn't be a whole bunch of ingredients in there. Even this is, these are our sort of during or pre-post. The ingredients, they're not citric acid, natural flavor, sodium bicarbonate, which is a buffer, turmeric powder, really just for the color, they say, stevia leaf extract, sunflower lectin. Oh, it's an emulsifier so that it shakes up. But and then amino acids. That's it. And it's going to be the exact same thing with this. Amino acids, some vitamins. So again, it shouldn't be like, look out for the things that are like, oh, and then it's our proprietary blend of blah, 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 and, all sorts of things. That's a red flag. It shouldn't be sort of 40 items long, and watch out for anything that the name is just sensationalized, like super duper rip, monster, animal, beast mode juice. It's like, either it's just a bunch of bunk, or it has something in it that it shouldn't have in it. All natural doesn't mean healthy. So there are lots of things that are all natural that are not good for you. Curare is one that comes to mind. That's a lethal poison that will kill you like that. It's natural, but not healthy. So don't get tricked. Now let's talk about some of the other supplements. Creatine. This is one as well that, so basically protein, sorry, I'm going to backtrack. Basically protein shakes or protein and carbohydrate shakes, it's just a convenience. You could eat a peanut butter sandwich and that would be fine too. So, but it's just a nice convenient way to get the food and to get the calories. We look at creatine. It also gets a bad rap. Sometimes people be like, oh, that creatine garbage. It actually isn't garbage. It's actually probably the most studied sports supplement, maybe other than whey protein. It's been studied for years and years, like scientifically studied for years and years. There doesn't seem to be really any long-term health risks associated with using creatine. You get creatine in red meat anyway, so if you eat a lot of red meat, you probably don't need it. If you're not eating a lot of red meat, then maybe you do. What it does is it really works on the energy system that you use just in the first 3 seconds of activity. So that start up from 0 to 3 seconds, I'm just hanging out and a lion jumps out of the bushes and I'm off like a shot. That's when it works. And what it does is it bonds with a phosphate molecule to make creatine phosphate in the muscle. So then when, we're getting a little geeky, but when your muscle fibers contract, it's, if we look at this is like microscopic, like the microfiber, it's called a sliding filament theory. So it's like there's a little kind of hook that grabs on the actin and it grabs on the myosin and it goes and it swivels, and that's what makes your muscles like contract. So there's like millions of those doing that. Well, in order for this thing to unhook and reload, you need a phosphate molecule, which is like crazy. So that creatine phosphate, it bonds a phosphate. When I swivel, well, now I have an ADP, an adenosine diphosphate, because I've used one of those phosphates from the ATP molecule. Well, now my creatine phosphate gives up a phosphate molecule. It can swivel again and do more muscle work. So like imagine that a cajillion times. That system replenishes almost to 100% after 3 minutes of rest. So why would we use creatine? Creatine can be helpful for repeated bursts of short duration activity. So for example, if we're in the gym and using that creatine helps us use or replenish that ATP system a little faster, then maybe we can get an extra rep on every set or use a little bit heavier weight on every set. So there's nothing magic about it, but over time, if I can get an extra rep or use a little heavier weight and still be explosive, over time, you know, that's, let's say it's a 3% improvement over time. Well, if you're already eating properly, doing all your training, getting good recovery, and this is something we can use to get that little extra, it's worth it. If you're not, then people are like, oh yeah, I saw he used creatine, he got so big. It's not a steroid. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't make you big. You know, if you're not doing the right kind of training, you're not training consistently, you're not training hard enough, then it doesn't matter. Again, it's not gonna do anything. It can just help you maybe do some short duration repeated bursts of activity. It's a 5-gram dose. You don't have to do a loading phase. Back in the day, they would talk about a loading phase. You don't do that. It's just 5 grams. For every gram of creatine that enters your muscle, I can't remember the number now. I think it's like 3 or 5 grams of water goes with it. So there have been anecdotal reports of people getting muscle strains when they're using creatine. And it could be that if you're bringing more water into the cell, the muscle cell, it actually makes the muscle cell a little stiffer. So that's not been proven, but it's just one of those things that you kind of hear about. So you just want to make sure too that you're staying hydrated if you decide to use it. Amino acids, again, they're not magical. They don't give you energy. Like it's not like, oh yeah, give me good energy. It's just, they're the individual building blocks of a protein. So instead of ingesting a protein that's a chain of blocks that your body then has to digest and chop down into its initial substrates, this is just, it's just giving you those building blocks so you can digest it faster. That's all. And really gets more important, especially if you don't eat meat, because meat gives you complete protein. If you're a vegetarian, some things give you some of the amino acids, but not others, and then you could be deficient in amino acids. A greens plus supplement, probably a good idea. Again, just keep it simple. There's lots of health food companies out there that make a nice green supplement. You can just add it to your shake, gives you some vegetables. I know a lot of the hockey players I work with, when I see their nutrition recall, there are not a lot of vegetables being eaten. So again, still eat your vegetables, get your fiber, just eat whole foods, but that can help. That's not a bad idea to throw in your milkshake. Fish oil supplement probably isn't a bad idea. There's stuff called beta-alanine, which I'll just mention because I do think it works. It helps buffer free hydrogen ions, which is what increases the acidity or changes our blood pH, makes it more acidic. And again, lactic acid doesn't linger in your muscle or in your blood or in your legs or anything like that. Lactic acid actually dissociates very, very quickly. But those free hydrogen ions will increase the acidity in the muscle, and then it gets very hard to do muscular works, which is what we feel. So it helps buffer, it helps sort of bind some of those free hydrogen ions. But again, it's sort of like a 1% thing. So our professional athletes that really are doing everything they're supposed to be doing, you know, it's worth a try. But it hasn't been studied as much as creatine. I think it does, again, help with sort of short duration, repeated bursts, maybe let you go a little longer, a little harder on your intervals. But it's not something, unless I was doing everything else perfectly, it's nothing I would ever consider. So basically pre-workout, you could have like your amino acids kind of shake. Some people have their protein at that time too. It's not bad. It's just that sometimes a protein shake doesn't sit very well in your stomach. So these ones are a little more like just like a sport drink, although they don't have sugar in them or anything like that. So it's a little easier to sip. I kind of like it because it gets people to drink fluid during their workout as well. Then post-workout, you want to get about 20 grams of protein and 40 grams of carbohydrate. So again, carbohydrate is key right after your workout. And if, say you're an athlete, say you're a goalie that has a bit too much fat and you're trying to lose body fat, well then the time to eat your higher glycemic carbs, like your pasta, your rice, your potatoes, is immediately after a workout. Because what happens is, when I put, the higher the glycemic index of the carbohydrate, the more insulin my body releases. When my body releases insulin, that kind of signals my cells, hey, there's going to be some energy substrates floating around in the blood. Take those up. Like, let's pull those into the cells, rather than just kind of letting it float around and then be like, oh, you know, yeah, I don't know where it's going with that. So it tells them to pull it into the cells. So after we've worked out, we've done some micro damage to our muscles, so we need some protein to help rebuild and repair. We've used up tons of our carbohydrates doing energy, so we need to replenish that. So then we put those energy substrates in. We have a higher glycemic carbohydrate. It triggers that insulin response, so then our body's like, yes, pull these nutrients into our cells. And then when it gets there, it's like, wow, what do you know? This must be our lucky day, because we needed protein and we needed some carbohydrate anyway to recover from that workout. Rather than dumping that kind of stuff into our body when we're at rest, triggering a big insulin response, and then it's like, well, our cells don't really need that stuff, so maybe we just package it and store it as fat, convert it to fat and store it. That's where I was going with that story. If you're trying to gain weight, so if you're like a skinny goalie and you know maybe you're a teenager, you're trying to gain some weight, then a protein shake is a good idea before bed, like, or just a protein snack, but not carbohydrate. So we don't want that insulin response before you go to bed. We want to kind of try to keep that protein circulating in the blood rather than just all get sucked up and maybe stored as fat. So we want it to sort of linger in the digestion. So protein shake before bed is good. Also, if you're trying to gain weight, what we've had really good success, especially with high school kids, just doing what we call the peanut butter diet. And if they don't like peanut butter, this is not going to work. But basically, it's just, hey, when you go to school and you make your lunch, make an extra peanut butter sandwich. And then you're going to have half of that sandwich before first and second period, and half of that sandwich between fourth and fifth period. It's just a very easy way we can give them more calories. They can grab it out of their locker, just eat it going between classes. It's not like a big thing, and it works great. So then it's like, if you're gaining mass, great, we'll stay with that. If you're still not gaining mass, or you're still losing some fat, then we just dial it up. Okay, make a peanut butter and a half sandwich until we get it where we want it. So here's a summary. Training and skill development are what's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, period. Then you got to sleep. You got to be eating proper food. Because, again, these shakes don't replace any of the garbage you do. These shakes aren't as good as just eating whole food. But again, I'm the same. It's like, well, I don't want to like come out of the gym and sit down and make myself, you know, a meal right there in the lobby. I want to just have something and get on with my day. So then start worrying about supplements. If you're doing the right training, working on your skills, eating proper food, getting enough sleep, then it's time to start thinking about, okay, well, maybe I could do some supplementation, or maybe I'll use some of these amino acids just to look for those little incremental advantages. Yeah, I like these companies because they test what they put out, and I think they're sort of geared towards working with athletes. Be a little bit careful when you go into the supplement shops, because some of the supplement shops, not all of them, they'll have promotions. So it's like, hey, if you can sell, you know, 4 tubs of super ripped XYZ, you know, you're going to get a free t-shirt, you know. And so then the guy working there is like, man, that's a sick t-shirt. I want to get that. I think the best resource, again, precisionnutrition.com. So go to the top right and click on there for the free articles, and they got really great stuff. So that's some talk about supplements and sport nutrition. See you again.